from Boston and beyond. Eat 981fm.com and iHeartStation.
Tonight's episode of Conversations with Coach La is brought to you by Virtual Services by Shamina Austin. Do you need to delegate some tasks, or are you looking to declutter a space? Well, assign it to her. Introducing Virtual Services by Shamina Austin. She's currently accepting new clients and offers a variety of back office services depending on your needs. Contact Shamina at 857-273-1528, 857-273-1528, or email shaminaaustin@gmail.com for more information.
Conversations with Coach La. Coach La, your favorite neighborhood therapist, having real hard convos, contrasting pessimists. Generational trauma explored, broach delicate, getting to the root of the pain, healing impediments. Every week signs copay free lessons. Bet on self, trust the process, no questions. Feel your feels, journey to be healed, no stressing. Conversations with Coach La's now in session.
A1FM.com and iHeartStation.
Nancia, Smokehouse, it's the urban heat. Shout out to Coach La.
Coach LA, it's time to listen to conversations that's gonna keep you winning. Sunday nights at 10 p.m. on the urban heat, just calling. Conversations with Coach La, 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 with Coach La, 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 la. If you got something on your mind, you can call in, you can hit a line. She the realest, ooh, she the realest. You can tap in, loud, always get a business to empower you so that you can do every and anything that you want to. Kicking it with Coach LA, it's time to listen to conversations that's gonna keep you winning. Sunday nights at 10 p.m. on the urban heat, just calling. Conversations with Coach La, 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 with Coach La, 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 la.
Another episode of Conversations with Coach La La La, your favorite around the way therapist. How y'all feeling on this Sunday evening? I hope y'all feeling good. I had to get my whole energy together. I was definitely chilling. Sundays are my day to reflect and just take some time for my mental health and just be still. You know, as they say, peace be still. I hope everyone is doing well. I am so excited that the weather is better. My mood is better. The energy is better. There's a lot of great things going on in the city. Hope my volume up. Let me turn my volume up a little bit. Hope y'all can hear me. I can hear me. Okay. So tonight, I'm excited. I'm honored. I guess I'm a little nervous too. I don't really get nervous often, but when I say that I have so much respect for tonight's guest, there's a personal story. You guys know that this show is inspired by my dad, who passed away 6 years ago. And I would have to say that this next guest has played a pivotal part in my spiritual journey, but also when my dad passed away as well. So there's just so many elements, and it even goes further back than that in terms of me being a mom and being a member of his congregation. So tonight's conversation is deeply rooted in my own healing and my own bet on self journey. As you guys know, season 7 has been all about unpacking the past and healing from within. And tonight we're talking about faith, spirituality, and mental health, and whether or not they can coexist. And so as a Christian myself, and also as a psychotherapist, that is so much a part of my story and a part of my journey. And then as the clients that I interact with grapple with spirituality, grapple with faith, and grapple with grief, and they grapple with extending grace to themselves and to other people, I thought, what better way to end this first part of the series with a conversation about spirituality? And if you're a person of color, you know that Jesus and let's pray on it is just part of who we are. We always gonna pray, at least in my house. We always are gonna seek guidance from the man upstairs. So I wanted to have this really important conversation because this show is all about debunking myths about stigma and about mental health. And for some people, they don't believe that you need a therapist. You can just go pray on it. So I had to bring this expert. He's a trailblazer. He's a father. He's a grandfather. And he's a spiritual trailblazer, an urban theologian. He's an advocate for the disenfranchised, which I think is it's an important statement, and I'm going to dig more into that. But he has over 40 years of providing grace, wisdom, and a deep commitment to healing our community. And I think that that's why we definitely have a connection. I remember when I would sit in church, I would always feel like he was speaking directly to me. I'm sure a lot of people felt that way, but I'm like, how did he know that I was thinking this, right? Like, how did he know to preach about this today? And he always had this amazing gift of making everything connect and speaking to you in a way that you could understand and you could digest it. And so I do that in my therapy sessions. Like, I don't like talking at people. I like talking with them. And I think he's able to do that. Now, he's not just a bishop. Like, some people think that that's all he does. I mean, this man has degrees and honorary doctorate. He is just of so many things, but I don't want to take all of his shine because I want him to tell you more about himself. But what I want to do is I would consider him my spiritual leader because I actually got saved in his church. That was where I actually accepted God as Jesus as my savior. And he spoke some really great things over my life that what you see and where you see me at today. He told me a long time ago that my journey was going to look like how it looks now, that I would be a voice and I would help other women heal. So I want to bring to the stage Bishop William E. Dickerson.
Hey,
what's
God
going
bless
on?
you.
What's going on? How you doing?
All right.
God bless
I'm doing
you.
Great.
You look great. I'm liking the whole fit you got going on, but you a stylist. You always stylish. You always look good. Always look good. You one of the best dressed people I know. So I know we talked about I was gonna read your whole bio, but I hope I did you well doing it from my heart and doing it
from your heart. Appreciate it.
From how I see you. But people don't know that. Like I went up back when I was pregnant with my son. I might have been about 7 months pregnant. And you call people up to the altar for prayer, right? You always call people up. If you got anything on your spirit, you need to pray. And I came up, I had my head down and my hands up, and I was just praying to God. And you know how you go past people and you talk to them and you touch them on the head, you do your thing, right? You do your blessing thing. And this time you stopped at me. You never used to stop at me. It was one of those moments that you told me to open my eyes, and never will forget this. And you told me that God saw my heart and saw all that I was going through. And that one day, all of the things that I was going through and I was experiencing was going to help me help other women see themselves and to keep on stepping and keep on holding my head up because I had a lot to offer the world. And in that moment, as a 7-month pregnant, not married, in church, but feeling really lost woman, right? Like I should have been smarter than that. My baby daddy, oh my goodness, he was a mess. And, I had a house and I had a degree and I had all these great things going for myself, but I didn't feel like I had made the right choice. So I was not making people happy, especially my family. A lot of people was like, how in the world did you get pregnant for him? Of all people, right? And it was definitely a difficult time, but I remember you saying that. And at that time, I wasn't a psychotherapist. I didn't have a radio show. I was just a 26-year-old woman trying to figure out how I was going to step into motherhood and hold down a job and just do all the things you need to do as a mother, a soon to be mother. So this is a full circle moment for me to have you here. So I'm so honored. I'm so thankful because so many things you said actually has come true. Another thing you said that stuck with me is that a lot of people just come to church, but church is not in them. and that
Mhm.
church needs to always be in you, and how you
Right.
live your life and how you treated other people. And that was not that you didn't tell me to come to church. So I want people to take this the wrong way, but it wasn't about just coming to church, but that church needed to be in you. So I always keep that near to my heart too. And every time you see me, I always say you got a seat for me at church. So um, I just so everybody know, I haven't been going to church. For all y'all people that want to be judging, don't judge me. Listen and
That's
we do not
right.
judge. So
That's right.
thank you for being here tonight. I really appreciate it. And I'm gonna switch it over to you. What is it that you would like people to know about you that is beyond the titles and beyond you being a bishop? Because there's a whole nother story to William E. Dickerson other than what the community knows.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, thank you for inviting me on, and I do consider you one of my spiritual daughters as well. And thank God for you and what God is doing in your life and in your profession as a therapist. Is so needful. Um, I grew up in Boston and my teen years in the Dorchester area, and I went to Boston Public Schools, and up, going to school locally, and graduate school and seminary, all within the Boston area. And I I was raised in a family that we had a mother who was an evangelist, and she was on fire for the Lord all the time. And when I got a little older, I drifted away, from the Lord. But I ended up coming back and giving my life totally to the Lord at around 18. And at 19, I got married. At 19, I got married, and my
Lady
wife and I were
Dickerson.
married. That's right, Lady D. My wife and I were married for 44 years. This December will make 45 years. So I have three adult kids, and we have six grandkids, and so I grew up in a city, going through the challenges of a young black man, and trying this and trying that. But I don't look down on folk. My mother always had a ministry to those who are on the streets hanging out and whatnot. And I ended up doing the same thing, reaching out to those that are marginalized, economically marginalized because of their posture or their position in life. And we were taught not to look down on people. And so I still go into the prisons and go into courts and go before the parole board. I still do that, for guys and women who are coming out of incarceration to try to help steer them in the right direction. So there by the grace of God go I. So I'm interested in this conversation because sometimes people don't understand the intersection of faith and therapy, faith and counseling, faith and mental health, things of that sort. So it's good we can dive into that.
Speaking of that, we often don't realize, and there can be judgment about spiritual leaders having a past. And I think one of the things I've always admired about you as a spiritual leader is that you've been very transparent about your walk and about life. And I think people need that to be able to be optimistic about change. And some of the things we talk about in therapy is change. Like, people feel like once I do something, that means I'm stuck with that and that's who I am. And people will hold you to that too, almost like, well, that's what you used to do, so you will always be that way.
Right,
So
right.
thinking about that, when you think about your past and the struggles that you went through and the triumphs, how have they helped or hindered you become the man that we see today?
Well, I went through a time when I was, um, I would say rebelling against God, but I didn't know it. Just hanging out in the clubs when I was too young to be in the clubs, like 16, 17 years old. Smoking weed and drinking, and just being irresponsible, irresponsible in terms of my decisions, and just in terms of who I would go home with, and end up becoming a teen dad. Yeah, I'm a teen father. So the fact that I'm a teen dad, I've been able to talk to my kids about some of the choices I made, and help them to make the best choices in life, So I don't act as if, I just woke up on the right side of Jesus this morning. And
Mhm.
and I let them know some of the mistakes of my past, and they can figure it out. They can add and subtract and all that stuff. So so why not share with them, some of the best practices that they can implement, which I should have at my young age.
Mhm.
Yeah,
I think we forget, and I often tell parents this, we forget our walk. Like we
right,
get to this place of maturity as adults, and we forget what it was like to be young, right? And now
right,
we have all this wisdom and we have all this hindsight, and we can be kind of hard on our kids that,
yeah,
they're going to do some of the same stuff we did. Even if we teach them everything, they still got their journey and their mistakes that they have to make.
that's right,
Um, so thinking about what tonight's conversation is about, right? Like the question I posed on my social media was, can faith and therapy, can church and therapy, can they coexist? And we talked a
hmm
little bit offline about this idea of I'm just going to pray on it.
yeah,
As a community, as a Black community, especially, it wasn't advocated to have a therapist. Often what you would hear people say is, I'm not going to talk to no therapist. I'm just going to take my problems to Jesus. I'm just going to pray on it, which still comes up now for a lot of my millennials that come into therapy and have older parents. They don't buy into you needing a therapist at all.
right,
So what is
right.
some of your take on that concept of just praying on it? And
Well, I think you can't use prayer as a scapegoat. You use prayer as a place of empowerment. And when we go to the Lord in prayer, the Lord will tell us what we need to do regarding our mental health. Okay, when we think about your physical hygiene. All right, you're not embarrassed that you have to go take a bath, you have to take a shower, you have to, take care of yourself. You have to brush your teeth and do all these things physically, right? So look at it from a standpoint of mentally, making sure that your mind is cleansed, that your mind is renewed, and it takes a process of you going through those things. And I think that, see, I have a background in psychology. I have a background in counseling. I'm a former school teacher and a former adjunct college instructor. So I look at it from the lens of a person who wants to be whole, okay? Because we could compartmentalize the things we go through, and we have our spiritual makeup, we have our physical makeup, then we have the mental, okay? And I think that it's okay for somebody to love the Lord, okay? And you might be seeing a psychiatrist, and they might prescribe you some meds. And we say, somebody, oh, he or she has the Holy Ghost, and they're showing it in a demonstrative way and whatnot. And then when you start talking to them, you say they love the Lord, but then some days they're not quite there. Some days they do some strange things. All right, you need Jesus, and sometimes you do need some meds. Sometimes you do need that counseling. To say counseling is something weak, that goes back from Black folk for years in the Black community. Mental health and having a counselor, that was taboo, because you know how a lot of Black families and individuals have suffered a lot because what happens in this house stays in this house,
yes,
and people
sir.
have suffered because of that. and
Right.
and they're grown men and women now that are going through, and they need to be under care of a counselor or psychiatrist to help them get through some tumultuous times in regards to some of the things that happened in their past. So kudos to all those that going to a counselor, going to see a psychologist or psychiatrist, someone, a mental health expert, to help you get through some rough moments, because you can use that and the power of prayer to catapult you to where you need to be. So you don't have to have one or the other. It's a great combination to work together.
I agree. And one of the things that comes up, and we talked about this too, is the idea of faith, right? And so if you have faith, and you believe in Jesus, you believe in God, you believe that, you know, all things will work out and God is good, but things are not always going good, right? Like life is
Right.
lifing, and a lot of people do the why me, you know, or feel like if I've done all these good things in my life, I shouldn't have any bad things happen to me. And so
Right.
they start questioning whether or not there's truly a God. So I wonder if you can shed light on that, because there's a difference between faith and spirituality and religion.
Right. Exactly. When I
So
think of faith, I think of our putting our trust in the Lord Jesus Christ. I know some people might, not worship the Lord, and I'm not here to debate what your faith tradition is, but you put your faith in the Lord, and like I was talking about earlier today, you accept Jesus Christ as your Lord and Savior, and he, if he is not Lord of all, he cannot be Lord at all. That's the faith part. Spirituality simply means that you spiritually are connecting with different people and some type of deity, and understand from a spiritual perspective, okay, not just from the physical perspective, but you understand some things from a spiritual perspective. Regardless of whether you're Christian, Buddhist, or Muslim, there are people that can engage in spirituality,
mhm.
and so faith, spirituality, and then you mentioned the third part. The third part was what, Coach
Religion,
Allen?
religion.
Religion. Yeah, religion.
Yeah.
Religion pretty much is just is man made. Spirituality can be more organic because it's something that you feel within. And I've known people to not really know God, but they can see things. They can see and read individuals. They're tapped in
Mhm.
spiritually. But there are people who have developed religion. Religion is man made. So based on what you feel fits you, you deal with a particular religion. So
Mhm.
I advocate for having a relationship with the Lord, and that's where my faith tradition lies. And I understand that there's some people that when they're going through certain things, they don't know how to put things together to focus and move forward, and the things that seemingly are bringing them down, they don't know how to overcome those things because they do not have the tools. When I say tools, you need to know, okay, what are some of the things you need to deal with? What are some of the things you don't need to deal with? When to say yes, when to say no, when to back up, when to collect your thoughts, how to collect your thoughts. All of those things, happen when you have a good mental health person to help you through and to guide you through. But if you don't have he or she, you don't know it, and you don't have the mechanics to use certain tools to help you be more effective in being the best version of yourself.
You know, you said, oh my goodness, you said so many great things. Everybody, once again, you're tuned into Conversations with Coach La with your favorite around the way therapist, Coach La La La. And I have William E. Dickerson, Bishop William E. Dickerson from Greater Love Tabernacle Church. And we're talking about the intersectionality of mental health and spirituality. And I think when you break it down like that, you know, having spirituality, which I put up, is a personal, often emotional connection to something greater than oneself. And it's not always tied to religion. So
Right,
I think when we talk about religion, a lot of people um, get uncomfortable because what they're doing is they're debunking the man-made side of the doctrine of different religions and different ways to honor religious codes, rules, and systems, right? Which we
right.
know, since it's man-made, there's always going to be some
Some flaws.
some flaws, some discrepancies. But
Right.
spirituality, on the other hand, is more like your energy, and we're all energy. We all got a
Mhm.
vibe, right? And
Right.
I think when you said that time that church needs to be in you, I kind of felt like spirituality. And when I really think about it and I kind of go back and reflect, spirituality needs to be in you, right? You need
Hmm.
to be someone who wants to be kind, to show grace, um,
Right.
to live your life the way you want other people to live their lives. I think once you get to this place of self-awareness that you want to be a good person inside and out, I think it makes everything else a lot easier, right? If
That's
people
true.
focused on them and how they show up and how they think and what they do, I think the world wouldn't be so judgmental. And you said that too. There was one thing you said once. You said, if your life everything you thought and you did was up on this big screen in church and everybody could see it, would you be as judgmental? I never will forget. I thought that was so impactful, and it was such a nice way to check people without checking people, because you
Right.
had to really think about it. Like,
Yeah.
you had to really say, wow, if people really knew what I thought, what I've done deep down that I've gonna go to my grave with, would I
Right.
judge them anymore? And I think ever
Right.
since you said that, I always held that deep in my heart. And I
Uh-huh.
think that helps me be a really good psychotherapist too, because I realize I got my flaws, I got my pluses and my minuses. And that also helped me to step into being a psychotherapist, because I realized I didn't have to be perfect.
Right. 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 See, everyone should strive to be the best version of yourself and to connect with God and to love other people and to be able to forgive yourself and love yourself, because nobody's perfect. We strive to be mature. We strive to get to a certain level or a certain height. And I think that sometimes we forget within our humanity, we forget that God understands right where we are. He understands all the complex things about us, and he understands the very minute details about us as well. And we're fearfully and wonderfully made. And if you don't think that you are special, then people can treat you any kind of way,
Mm,
because you don't think that much of your own self. And so I think that as we take time to go to the gym, to exercise, to get our physicality to the point where we want to be, we should be thinking about mentally having our minds renewed on a regular basis, you know.
mm,
And so there's a scripture in the Bible in Romans chapter 12 says, I beseech you therefore, brethren, by the mercies of God, that you present your bodies a living sacrifice, holy and acceptable unto God, which is a reasonable service. And be not conformed any longer to the patterns of this world, but be transformed by the renewing of your mind, that you may prove what is that good, acceptable, and perfect will of God. And so our minds need to be renewed in order for us to appreciate who God has made us to be and the impact that we're destined to make. Because every person has a purpose. And once you find that purpose, you lock in that purpose, you connect with your spiritual leader, you connect with your therapist, you connect with your team of people. Yes, the team that loves you, the team that supports you, you know who they are. Sometimes we find ourselves in need of therapy because we're around the wrong people that's pulling us down and it's draining us, you know.
mm,
Um, I wrote a book several years ago, and I don't know if I'm going to do a sequel to it or not, but it's called You Too Can Be Delivered. And this
mm,
this particular book right here, this book has a lot of stories of people that God has used me to minister to, but also it has a story of my mother. My mother lost her mind when she was oh my Lord, uh, what's going on? I'm
You
so sorry.
you turned your camera off.
I
I can still
know.
hear you though.
Yeah.
You bet.
Yeah, no, somebody was sending me a message I'm on my phone. They just want it's just messed
You
up.
bet.
I
You back now.
apologize. I apologize. So anyway, my mother, she lost her mind when she was younger, like a late 20s, and she was institutionalized. But she made a promise to God, if you give me back my children, bring me back to my right mind, I'll serve you to the day I die. And that's what she did. But God brought deliverance in her life. There's some people, God can bring deliverance in your life. You can be delivered through the power of prayer. And some people along the way, you need prayer, but you also need an ongoing counseling because things are just not right sometimes when you're focusing on doing right. You can't really get there. And so that counselor or that prayer warrior will help to get you there. But don't ever
Mhm,
think of yourself as being a victim. See, some people they end up becoming I would say self-destructive when they look at themselves as a victim. My mother went on to serve the Lord to the day she died. She died at an early age, only 48 years old. I was 16 years old when my mother passed away. But she passed on a lot of spiritual things to us that have helped me to this very day. And she refused to be a victim, and she overcame her circumstance, and she went on to help a lot of people in the city of Boston. So I'm
I don't
telling you,
think I
regardless of
ever
where
knew
you
that.
are, you can make it, huh?
I said, I don't think I ever knew that. I think, wow, that's even more impactful, and that's what we used to say. You lost your mind or you had a nervous breakdown. And a
Yeah,
lot of
yeah,
Black women in particular, um, just from stress and feeling overwhelmed and trying to, navigate so many things, your nervous system crashes almost like a computer. People don't think of, you
right,
got so many windows open on a computer, right? And
right,
they're all open at the same time. Eventually, the computer starts to slow down. And if you still don't close any of the windows, it crashes. And a
right.
lot of times people don't realize
That's a
that.
good analogy.
Thank you. I love that one too. It works every time. But um, that's often what mental health is like for a lot of people, is that they got all of these windows opened up in their brain, and it's just all working simultaneously, and it's trying to pull energy from you, and your
Yeah,
body, your nervous system just shuts down. It can't take no.
right.
So we have to take breaks. And we
Hmm.
also, I think, need counselors to have a sounding board, right?
Right,
Somebody that you can talk to get that stuff out. And I think when we
right.
only pray on it, who's on the other side but God? And right. And if you're not really connected to God the way you think you are, you could be talking to something else.
That's right.
You might not be talking to God. God might not be the one speaking to you. You could be
That's
in your
right.
head,
Yep.
just having a whole dysfunctional, delusional conversation. And you sometimes need
Exactly.
a sound person to tell these thoughts to, that's
Yep.
also able to help you sort of see and talk back to you so you can clear that stuff out. That's how I look at therapy. So you can pray
Right.
all day long, but at some point you need to be able to get human connection other than just a spiritual one, to ponder and grapple with what you got going on in your head. What you think
Yeah.
about that?
I agree 100% because see, some people can use prayer as escape, a place to escape, and it's not supposed to be a place to escape. It's supposed to be a place of empowerment. And once you're empowered, God will give you things that you need to do. You need to ask people for forgiveness. You need to drop some things that have been on your shoulders that belongs to somebody else. Sometimes the Lord might tell you, go to this person, and they will lead you in the right direction towards a counselor, towards a mental health expert. I've known people, that love God, and those praising God and worshiping God and speaking in tongues. But when they go to prayer, there's so much running in their mind. The mind is racing until they think they're hearing from God, like you said, and they're not. They're just in their own head, and they make decisions based on what they think that God said to them, and God didn't say a thing to them. They are just in their own head going through all this mental anguish and challenges and different things, and they come up with ideas. They come up with solutions, and that God is not in it. So I think that we need to be more mature to know that what, I can't even collect my thoughts when I pray. So I need
Mhm.
to learn how to connect. I need to learn how to concentrate, get my thoughts together, and when I have a good counselor, a mental health professional before me, they will help me go through some things because sometimes people are traumatized when you
Yeah.
have so much trauma that's in your life that you don't know how to make the right choices and be able to articulate your innermost feelings and that from a visceral standpoint, your emotions and things that you're going through. If you don't know how to channel those things and to articulate those things, you can find yourself just caving inwardly and
Yes.
end up, becoming, like a social recluse, and
Yes.
so
Yes.
it's important to talk, to have somebody to talk over certain things. And I've known people that have just a couple of sessions with people, and after I've had those sessions with people, they were okay. Now I know what I need to do,
Yeah.
and prior to that, they loved God, but they just was stuck, you
Yes.
know. And
Yes.
sometimes you gotta get with people that can help you to get unstuck, so
Yes.
you can move forward. Yeah.
That's such a great point. There's a she doesn't practice therapy, but she's a coach. She's a life coach, executive coach. I think she goes by Raquel, the capacity coach. And
Uh
she
huh.
talked about emotional fragility, right? And she
Uh
talked
huh.
about this destigmatization of mental health has made us become more emotionally fragile, and we're using mental health and mental health awareness almost like a shield, or we're weaponizing it now, right? Like
Right.
everything is like I'm protecting my peace, and everything is, you know, the block culture. Like no one wants to really deal with anything. Every time somebody tells you about yourself, they're hating on you. If
Right.
anybody, tells you no, you can't accept a boundary. Like, people are not helping one another anymore because they're saying, you know what, I got to keep my boundaries in place. So they're using it in a way that's not helpful, which brings me to my thought about polarized thinking. Usually people are either all black, all white, all left,
Mhm.
all right, and I wonder, how does that intersect, in your opinion, to religion? Because, there's always, right, wrong, good, bad, good, evil, like we sort of stay in that lane. And I'm wondering, is there space for gray in religion or
Well,
spirituality, I would say?
there is space for gray religion, but in your faith commitment to the Lord, you gotta make sure you don't have any gray areas. And if you do, you definitely need some prayer and counseling for sure, because you can be jacked up. I think sometimes when we are dealing with polarizing thoughts, and we can't focus on certain things, and we start to look at life as if it's just from a certain people have access to peace, like from an esoteric sense. It's only meant for a few to have a certain peace, and I'll never have the peace, and I'll never, and then we revert back to the devil did this, and the devil said that, and the devil, and so we find ourselves always blaming things on the devil, that he might not have anything to do with it. It's just our poor decisions, or we're saying God said and God did, and we don't have a balance. I think that striking the balance in terms of mental health, in terms of the intersectionality of faith and religion, you have to be able to know what you believe, why you believe, and you have to be able to put yourself in the right position to win. When I say that, you have yourself a person who you can trust, that you can confide in, as whether it's your spiritual leader, or whether it's a confidant, and you have that professional person, that's that health counselor, that's that psychologist or psychiatrist, and then you look at some of the decisions you have to make from a religious standpoint. And sometimes we get caught up in labels. We label things so much until we can lose ourselves. So the basic thing is finding a balance and being able to move forward in a godly and productive manner, and understand who you are as a person, so that you can make the necessary changes to go forward, and not blame everything on the, like the devil made me do it, so to speak.
You said that earlier. Like sometimes we can think that God's talking to us. I mean, we got serial killers that say God told them to do it, right? So
Mhm.
we got to be mindful that people can use religious doctrine to weaponize and make excuses for poor decisions and just not being a good person, right? So I think
No,
I
that's
think that
right.
that's a really good point in terms of having balance. And I always ask people, well, who are you? Like, who do you want to be, despite and outside of what people have said you are, or you are supposed to be? Like, what do you say? What do you want? What do you
Right.
think? Right.
Right.
So
That
there was a
that's
thing.
powerful. That's powerful. There
Thank
was a
you.
book. There's a book we had to read, a real small book, um, in seminary years ago. I'm talking about back in may have been the late '80s. it was titled, why are you afraid to tell me who you are? All right.
Mm. Mm-hmm.
Okay. You
What happened? You reading the message, Bishop?
I see you. You're. I don't
Oh,
know
I'm
if I don't
sending.
know. You hear
I can
me,
see you. I
Coach
can
LA?
see. Yep, I can see you and I can hear you. I can see you and I can hear you. Can you see yourself? Hello. Uh-oh. Did we leave? Did we lose you? Hello.
Well,
There you go.
I think sometimes we're afraid to tell people who we really are because we don't want to be rejected, you know. And sometimes people will reject us when they can't handle the level of truth or transparency that we want to share with them, you know. And so I apologize. Hope it's not my end that's causing this.
No, we can hear you. I can hear you. I can hear
Okay,
you. I
you're
can hear
back. You can hear me. Okay,
I can hear you.
okay.
You good. Just
Yeah,
keep talking. I can hear
no,
you.
just keep talking. Okay,
Yep, yep.
yeah. I
It's
lost.
probably
I lost your visual. I lost you as
you
yeah,
probably are
yeah,
getting a delay.
yeah.
Internet,
Okay,
the Wi-Fi
yeah,
is trying to act up. Listen,
yeah.
listen now. Spiritual guys, you need to leave our Wi-Fi alone. So I wanted to
So
bring up this
yeah, go ahead.
concept about faith without works is dead.
Okay.
You heard me?
Yeah, faith without works is dead.
Yes.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
Right.
So I was looking this up and it was saying that it was it's a core concept in Christianity.
Mm-hmm.
And it's particularly found in the book of James, which I know you're more, versed in this than me, but it emphasizes that true faith is not merely a belief or intellectual assent, but must be manifested in tangible actions and good deeds.
Right.
Right.
That's true.
And,
Yeah.
and so it got me to really thinking about this idea of folks just wanting to pray on it.
Mm-hmm.
And then just thinking that if they just pray on something, all will just magically happen, right? Versus
Right.
you prayed on it and it said, you know what, you need to go to church or you need to read a book or you need to go to therapy, but you go, that ain't what I'm supposed to do.
Right.
I ain't supposed to do that. I ain't gonna do that. Even if it's like gnawing at you, right? And you get the idea in your head, you say you don't want to do it. And I wonder why people will reject doing something that could potentially help them grow or be positive, but will go do a bunch of bull crap stuff that they know it ain't good for them, and get that little voice to say you shouldn't do that, and they'll go, oh, now it'll probably work out. Like, why do you think psychologically? I'm like, all of us most times get that little voice that says we shouldn't do something, and we'll go ahead and hit the gas on something like that. But then something
Well,
positive, we'll sit here and talk ourselves out and be like, I ain't gonna go say nothing to that person. I'm not gonna go you just, and you operate from fear. That's what I think.
fear. Fear. Yeah. Fear can hold you back. Fear can hold you back, but then a sense of wanting to be in control, you make the decisions, and I'm going to do this, I'm going to do that. And I think that you have to understand that when you're fearful of something, it's not going to bring out the best in you. And when you say you have faith, your faith should be manifesting some things in your life. So you just don't say you have faith. The faith should be based on a doing theology, that I'm have a relationship with God, understand Him, and I'm moving forward in the right direction, and I'm doing some things that's relative to me saying that I have faith. I'm manifesting some things in regards to me having faith, because you don't want to just talk about it, you want to be about it. And once you find yourself doing some things that's enhancing you as a person, that's moving you in the right direction, you're gonna find yourself being more powerful and more effective in your journey in life and your walk with God.
Yes, I agree. So I found this statistic, right, from the Pew Research Center that said that 75% of people will turn to a religious leader before a mental health professional, which is another reason why I wanted you on the show. Is I think that the synergy and the intersection between both mental health and religion needs to sort of happen, right? Like, we need to stop being black and white, because so many people are going to going to church or going to religious leaders, and it's still not enough because there is still an increase of people with mental health conditions, breakdowns, suicide, all of these things. So we
Well,
got to
see,
kind of somehow bring these two things together to be able to heal our community.
see, the problem is when you go to a spiritual leader who does not have the educational background in psychology, mental health, and psychiatry, things of that sort. But when you go to a spiritual leader that is a legitimate person that has that background, they can help you. But sometimes we bypass that mental health professional because we don't want to be looked upon as having a mental health problem. You know, mental health is not a problem. Mental health is a part of your humanity. As you, like I said before, as you clean your physical body, you have to clean your mind. Okay. And you can't listen, some places like on your back, you need somebody to help you get there. You know, you get a scrubber to get you. So in terms of in here, you need somebody to help you get in here because there's places in here that you can't get by yourself.
Oh, listen,
That's
I
why
love it. Sometimes you
that
need help getting to your back, right? You need some help. You need a brush. You need something to get back.
right, right, right. Yeah. And so that's
Absolutely.
how you look at as having a spiritual support and mental health support to get you to places in your mind that you don't have the strength to go there. Why? Because you were too traumatized to go there. But if I can take you by the hand and lead you into those dark moments and dark places in the inner recesses of your mind, then I can help you to deal with some of that stuff. And you're not angry all the time, mad at your coworkers, mad at your supervisors, angry all the time. Some people there's just too. I had somebody go off on me on just driving, and I'm thinking in my head, that's not. I didn't do anything. Like I have not been around them long enough for them to be that upset.
Yes.
It's just
You
certain
know,
things, unresolved issues.
and this, and, I talked about this throughout this series about generational dysfunction and cycles and learned behaviors, right? And the National Alliance of Mental Illness says that 1 in 5 U.S. adults experience a mental illness each year. So this is a real thing, right? Because as
Right,
Bishop just said, we have for so long separated mental health from physical health instead of it being holistic. Your
right,
brain is a part of your body. And
right,
like I gave the analogy earlier today, if you think about your brain like a computer and you got all of these different windows open and you never take a moment to close them and to reset, to practice self-care, to pray, to, speak, do therapy and all of these things, eventually your nervous system, just like a computer, will crash,
that's
right?
right,
You are going to have a breakdown. If you don't do it, it will manually shut down itself, right? And so
right,
you have to be able to step back, reflect, get out of your own head, process your thoughts, feelings, and emotions. But I think the real big one that I want us to touch on before we go into the bet on self moments and journey is this reality that life is lifing.
hmm,
And for a lot of people, what they grapple with the most is that bad things are happening to them or people
right,
around them. They're dealing with trauma, they're dealing with
hmm,
grief. And we talked about this idea of forgiveness because some things are just hard to forgive, right? They're
right,
hurtful, like especially with so much of the, death and murder in our community and people's, young people are getting killed. That's a hard thing to grapple with and to sort of not have your mental health be impacted. And people are really heavy hearted. What do you say to that? Because I know people come to church on Sunday and they praying every week and they still just they're hurting.
right, right. So I think that sometimes the church tell people to forgive too soon, and it's forgiveness is a process. It doesn't happen overnight, and sometimes I think we make people feel bad, but forgiveness is real. It's something that we have to decide for ourselves, but we have to do it in concert with a pastor, a clergy person, a mental health professional. Somebody's going to help us to get in and dig deep in some of the issues that we have to deal with, because some people that we have to forgive still doing well in life, and you think that they should not be doing well in life because you think that they're such a bad person. And some people we have to forgive are dead, and so I think that we have to look at it as a process. I remember somebody telling someone whose loved one was murdered, oh, just forgive him, it's going to be all right. And I said, oh, don't say that. Don't say just forgive them. It's going to be all right. That was the wrong time. In
Mhm.
time, they have to learn how to let things go, because the forgiveness part is that when I harbor this resentment and hatred towards someone who wronged me or wronged my loved one, then if I don't let that resentment go, it might end up hurting me. I might do something that's detrimental to myself. And I've known people to be so angry with other people until they hurt themselves. And that's what the forgiveness part is about. When people say forgiveness is more about you than the other person, it doesn't sound right, But
Mhm.
but the truism in it is that there are people that have self-destructed over their lack of letting go some of this anger and resentment. That's what it is, anger, resentment. But the forgiveness piece, like I said, it's a process, and we got to learn how to take people through that process as opposed to telling them, "Oh, it's going to be all right."
Yeah,
That's not fair.
it's a tough one,
Yeah.
because everything you said resonates. That I've come to this place, and it's controversial what I'm going to say,
Uh-huh.
because I think that often the forgiveness or the lack thereof is what keeps people stuck,
Mhm.
and they can't move forward. So I started
Uh-huh.
saying to people, it's your choice to offer forgiveness. But just
Uh-huh.
because you don't forgive that person doesn't mean that you can't still live your life. It doesn't mean that you have to have apathy. It doesn't mean that you have to hold on to anger. It doesn't
Uh-huh.
mean that you have to be vengeful, or even that you want to go and do anything to harm the other person, right? But
Uh-huh.
often what
Right.
happens is that the reason why we say forgive is because you're doing destructive things to yourself. And your
Right.
life is
Exactly.
in this such a place because that's the only thing you think you can do to, because what else can you do? And it
Right.
becomes this internal thing where you're actually giving that other person so much more power over you. When
Uh-huh.
I say, guess what? You ain't got to give them the forgiveness. That's really for them anyway. But if you
Right.
live your life and you thrive and you find a different way, maybe you do a foundation for your loved one. Maybe you take
Hmm.
up a cause for advocacy. You create a policy, you create a law, right? You do something like that, right? And you
Right.
survive in a different way. And you can say, I don't forgive you for what you did, because that's to
Hmm.
let the other person be free of it. No, I give that to you. You're going to live with that for the rest of your life, that I
Uh-huh.
don't forgive you, but I'm still
Uh-huh.
doing this. I'm still
Right.
living over here. And you're going
Right.
to be tormented, right, for the rest of your life, not me.
Hmm.
I mean, and
Yeah.
I know that that's maybe a complex concept,
Yeah.
but I've been thinking a lot about maybe that's what we need to not do, is that you can keep keep it for you. You don't got to give
Uh-huh.
that, but you don't have to sit here and die too, right?
Right.
Because
Yeah. Well.
but
Yeah.
want you to have this happen because that happened to them. But they want
Right.
you to go and kill this person and be in jail for the rest of your life.
Right. You
That's
don't want
it,
to do that.
right?
That
Like,
that's that's right. That's the part I'm trying to say. Anything is gonna, hurt you or cause you to self-destruct. You gotta
yeah.
let it go. Let it go. And
Ooh,
sometimes it's the forgiveness piece. But like you said, there are times you may say, you know what? I'm not ready to let go of that. I'm not ready to forgive that person. I want them to deal with the ramifications of their actions and consequences that go along with it, etc. And I think that sometimes we look at it as a person being exonerated. If I say I forgive that person, they're not totally exonerated, because God has a way of bringing justice into any situation that's unjust.
Yeah, that's true.
Right.
So, bet on self. You know, I think in so many ways, people have asked me, how did I thrive in so many spaces that would have maybe brought other people to their knees? And my dad used to always tell me, baby, if you bet on yourself and you always believe in who you are and you always put your best foot forward, you will always win. And so when he passed away, I started using that to deal with my grief. I'd be like, you know what? You're going to get up today. You're going to bet on yourself today. You're going to put your best foot forward today, you know, and that was just something I was doing for me. And it turned into a whole course, a hashtag, a momentum, a mantra, an affirmation, and a lifestyle that now has become a part of my brand. And it's in those moments where you're intentional and you decide to take control over your destiny despite your circumstances of what people have said you are. You start to say who you are going to be and you start to become that. So thinking about your journey, even past or going forward, bet on self moments for you that stick out where you really said, you know what? Because you got a couple different names too, because Mark was here. He was calling you Billy, right? So you've had different, depending on when people met you.
He called me that because people whose name is William, they normally use Bill. But nobody ever called me Bill. They call my dad Bill. They always call me Dickerson. They call my dad, they call him Bill. They call me Dickerson, and they call my son Will. He's the third.
Yes.
So
depending on when people meet you, they may or may, I said, so depending on when people meet you, they may or may not know your whole story.
Yeah. That's true. And then I also have a name where people call me Jimmy. That's from years ago.
Yes. I forgot about that.
A whole other story years ago.
So a bet on self moment, you know, maybe one that's coming or one that we don't know about.
Oh, a bet on self moment is when I started Greater Love back in 1989, my wife and I. And it wasn't the best time to start it because we lacked the funds and resources to do it. But we stepped out on faith. And at that time, we were at the African American Institute at Northeastern. Well, no, we came from Good Shepherd. That Pastor Bishop Sam Hogan is my pastor and my father in the gospel, my spiritual father. So we came from Good Shepherd, and from Good Shepherd we launched the church. We started our kitchen table in Mattapan years ago, and then we ended up having services at the African American Institute on Sundays. And Dean Keith Motley at the time, he was over there at Northeastern, and he allowed us to have church there. We stayed there for a year, and then we moved over to the Tobin Community Center. We stayed there for about 9 years, and then we ended up being Nightingale Street, where we are now. And so it was a step of faith, and I didn't want to be a pastor, you know. But when I sensed that God was calling me, and I got confirmations, then I yielded, and I said that was a bet on self moment, that I knew that God was going to be with me, and that everything was going to work out for the good. And so I thank God for my wife being by my side, my 3 children who they were supportive in the early stages of our church, and they're still with the church to this very day. And you know them, and they have their own families and whatnot.
Yes,
but I thank God for the journey.
Yes, I never I knew Tobin Community Center because I went to Mission High and I used to come to the Tobin, and I remember you guys having church there because I used to work at the Tobin for a period of time. So
Ron Bell opened that door for us.
Yes, and Ron Bell as well. Yes. So I am, again, thank you for being here, and shout out to the family, because I know this is a late time on a Sunday because you've already been working all day to talk to everyone. And I'm hoping that folks really got something from tonight's conversation. I'll do some shout outs. Don Weck, thank you. Steve Goolsby's jumped on. Bella Ray, my sister Shamina, LaDonna, thank you, sis, for jumping on. Everybody on Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, LinkedIn, all of the beautiful places. And of course, iHeartRadio. You guys have been great. And also tonight I added Twitch to the mix, which I've never had Twitch. So Twitch has also been on and listening as well. So you guys know I started Coach's Corner, which is an opportunity to reflect on tonight's conversation and have you really think about how you want to do, or how you want to move throughout the week. So I want to leave you with this concept and this idea that healing isn't about perfection. It's about presence. When we allow faith, therapy, and a spiritual practice to work together, we create a healing container for ourselves and our communities. So don't be afraid to choose Jesus and a therapist. That might just be when you make your most significant bet on self moment. So I want to thank you, Bishop Dickerson, for coming and joining me on the virtual couch. And God bless you. Continue the amazing work that you do. And I know you got a seat for me right there in the front pew. So I have to make my way back over to the street. You guys can attend Greater Love Tabernacle Church every Sunday. They got an 8 a.m. service.
Well, no, 10 a.m. After the pandemic, we end up.
Oh, it's just 10 now?
10 a.m.
Just 10
a.m. And we have
Wednesday
nights at 7 p.m. That's 101 Nightingale Street, Dorchester. 101 Nightingale Street, Dorchester. Greater Love Tabernacle.
And the doors are always open. So make sure you go if you're looking for a church home. It's a good place to be. Really good, solid people over there. And thank you, Bishop Dickerson.
You're so welcome. And I'm glad that I was able to be on. And thank God for each one of you all. Thank God for this radio station, Urban Heat, and all those that work together to make it happen.
Yes, I love my Urban Heat family.
Yeah, thumbs up to Mark and Steve and all the guys there.
Absolutely.
And this is the same station Jonathan's on, right?
Yes, Jonathan is here too.
That's my man.
Cookout. Yep, he's here every Monday
Uncle
through
JG.
Friday. Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
All right.
So, good night, everyone. Thank you again for joining us on the virtual couch.
God bless. Deuces.
And beyond. Heat981fm.com and iHeartStation.
If you got something on your mind, you can call him, you can hit a line. She the realest, ooh, she the realest. You can tap in, loud, always get a business to empower you, so that you can do every and anything that you want to. Kicking it with Coach LA's time to listen to conversations that's gonna keep you winning. Sunday nights at 10 p.m. on the Urban Heat, just call it Conversations with Coach La 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 La.